A good collectible in a game can tie the entire experience together, but what you might not know is the immense amount of work and nuance that goes into them despite their seemingly simple appearance. Today we're covering the do's and don'ts of collectibles, from extremely obvious to incredibly niche, while using actual examples coded by me. This video is meant to be helpful for those that are game developers, but also be interesting to those people who just want to see behind the scenes of how games are made. So let's hang out and talk about collectibles. Okay, I have a basic collectible here. It's a piece of candy, and if I walk over to it, you'll see that I am not actually picking it up, but if I jump into it, I actually collect it, and there's a reason for that. This is something that you don't want to do with collectibles, and that's making your colliders too small. You might think that this collision, which is this green square here, is actually good for this collectible, but it's a collectible. You want to give the player a little bit of breathing room in order to get it. So what you want to do is actually make the collision for it a bit larger than the actual image of the collectible itself. That means that the player doesn't have to walk so close to it in order to pick it up. So now when I walk over to the collectible, I can pick it up very easily. You probably noticed that I have my collectible close to the ground so that when I walk into it, I'll actually pick it up. Now this thing is not a do or a don't, it's kind of just how you feel about it. But I personally like putting my collectibles near the ground so the player doesn't need to jump in order to get them. But if you want to add more activity to the player, you can actually move your collectibles up in the air, which forces them to have to jump to get it. Now this can be a good or a bad thing, honestly. It can be a good thing because if you have really long stretches of straight areas, you want to give the player something to do, so you give them little jumps that aren't exactly obstacles in order to just make the game a little more fun. But it can also be annoying for the player to have to keep jumping over and over to get collectibles when they'd rather just walk in a straight line. I honestly don't know the best answer for this. I think it really depends on the type of game, but personally, in this game, I like putting them closer to the ground. This is something I'm sure a lot of you know, but it's actually really interesting if you don't know it, but you can use collectibles in order to lead the player to different areas. So for this example, I have this little hill here and a sign. If I read the sign, it says, "Danger, steep incline ahead. Seriously, don't go down there." So the sign is telling me not to go down there, but I see some candy, so obviously I'm going to go down there, and this leads me to a brand new area, which I previously probably wouldn't have gone into because the sign said no, but the collectibles were telling me yes. And this happens a lot all over the place in games. Like there's some candy pieces up there I know I want to get to, so I try to jump and I get pushed down. And so that's an introduction to these little air vents that actually push you around. Player might have tried to jump up there and then got pushed down, so now they know, oh, that's gonna push me down. But at the same time, they want to try to find a way to get around to get to that candy up there. This area that I'm at is not very interesting. You jump to the left, and then you jump, and you jump, and you jump, and that's okay, but it's not extremely interesting, right? So you can actually grab collectibles and bring them into that area, kind of put them around. And now that there's collectibles in this area, it's actually a lot more interesting to the player than how it was previously. And that just shows that adding collectibles around more dull areas in your game can actually bring up the interest level a little bit, which is really good to the player because you don't want them going through little jumpy parts and there's just nothing for them to do aside from the jumping. The jumping is the part of the gameplay, but you also want a little bit of reward as they're doing that. Collecting things makes people happy, but there is such thing as too much of a good thing. Like here, I have collectibles everywhere on every single jump and a ton of them, and you don't want to do this because when they become so regular that you're expecting to get a collectible every single jump, at a certain point, putting a ton of collectibles just adds visual clutter. At least that's how I feel. It's also interesting to mention that putting collectibles everywhere can be just as effective as putting down no collectibles, because if the player thinks there's going to be a collectible everywhere, at a point it's going to be so not special that if there was no collectibles, it would be just as exciting as there being collectibles. Even if you aren't going overboard with your basic collectibles, it's still a good idea to have a variety to just sprinkle some extra stuff in there. When I first started development of this game, I only had the basic candy, and after a while, I discovered that I wasn't really enjoying collecting it as much anymore, so I wanted to add something else that gave a little bit of spice, so I added the triple candy. The only difference between the triple candy and the normal candy is that the triple is worth 3, but you can put it around in little different areas, maybe somewhere that's a little more difficult to get to, and that's like an even bigger reward for the player. Let's take a break from discussing collectibles and actually see really good collectibles in action with Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is a game that I really, really love. In this game, if you punch around anywhere, you're going to be picking up these little pieces of gold, and they don't exactly lead the player anywhere, but they do reward you for just smashing anything, which is one of the main mechanics in the game. And you can get the gold from just smashing like anything, just getting it all over the place. Even just looking at this, it makes you want to get it. It's got that nice little shine to it, and you know it's just gonna make you happy to pick it up. But another example of a collectible in this game are these little fossils that you can often find stuck in the walls. I've already collected this one, so it's just an outline of it and it gives me some gold. But that's also a tool that they use to reward exploration. And this is an example of using collectibles to lead the player. So we have these little tiny gold pieces, but if I go into here, there's actually a fossil hidden under there. This game really rewards exploration, which I find so awesome. So you could just accidentally fall down somewhere and be like, oh my god, I just found some fossils. That's so cool. Much like I had the 3 pieces of candy together, here are some gold chunks that are bigger than the small ones that we had before, and that obviously just gives you more. Going back to how collectibles can be overbearing, a lot of people think that the gold in this game is really just a bunch of nothing because it's just absolutely everywhere. You saw I just got a bunch there, I could just punch it to the ground and get more there. Some people think it's a little too much, but some people actually like it being too much. So that's the thing to think about if you're ever making a game. Do you want to have a crazy amount of collectibles that are just all over the place? Or do you want them to feel a little bit more special? I also heard that complaint about Mario Odyssey for there being too many collectibles just everywhere and it didn't feel very nice to actually get them. But I personally don't feel the same way about that as those people do. Okay, that's enough of Donkey Kong Bonanza. Let's go back and talk about some more things. What if I told you there is a trick to using a player's memory to enhance a collectible and make them look forward to it? So in this situation, I have this button. When I press it, it's going to open this door, which then starts a timer. And if I run all the way over here and not mess this up, I could go in here. And now I have access to this fancy thing right here. It's a box full of candy, and to show you that it's extra special, it actually has these little sparkle particles. So how does this tie into a player's memory? Well, let's say you have multiple areas similar to this one where it is a timed challenge where you press a button, a door opens, and the player knows every time they see one of those, they are going to get a box of candy. If your game is segmented into levels and each level has one of these, the player knows that they can at least look forward to having one of these challenges in every level. Yes, it's cool to have things be very unique and different in every different part of your game, but it's also cool to have some things that are a little bit repetitive in terms of the format of how they're laid out because it's more familiar and comfortable to the players. And speaking of this candy box, this is actually the next thing I want to talk about, and that's repackaging other collectibles in a way that makes them more exciting because of the quantity of them. I've already talked about the normal candy, and it's all over the place, but I wanted to add a little spice to even just the normal candy type, so I created this candy box that when you open it, actually spits out a bunch of candy in a very satisfying way. This is a method of giving the player a ton of just the normal collectible, but packaging it in a way that feels very exciting, and it just is a very cool moment for the player to actually have. I think this stuff is very important because the alternative would have been just filling this room area with 8 pieces of candy, but instead we did a little bit extra and added in some animations and effects just to show that what you just did is very cool. So your reward is not only going to be cool in terms of what you're getting, but it's also going to be very cool visually. And this candy box is kind of interesting how it's made. Basically, when you go up to it and you interact with it, it's got this candy amount number over here, and it's going to activate a timer. When that timer is done, initially it's just going to pop the lid off of it, and the lid itself is just an actual object that has this script on it that's going to make it fly in a direction randomly, and it has a specific amount of times it can bounce before it is completely destroyed. So it creates one of those and then it flies away, and it also starts popping out candy. Obviously it has this number, so every time the number goes down 1, it's going to initiate the timer again, pop out another one, and then it's going to keep doing that over and over until all of the candy is gone. But the candy that's flying out of it is also its own type of candy, which is going to fly up into the air without collision based on this timer here. And when that timer is done, it's going to activate this script, which sets it to following, which is going to make it fly over to the player. So it has a little bit of time for when it's flying up in the air, and then after the timer is finished, then it goes over to the player in a very satisfying way. I also have this script that's called pop, and basically what it does is it just alters the scale so that it adds a little squishy effect every single time a piece of candy pops out. A little bit complicated, but also a little bit simple at the same time. Here's a neat tip. You can hide collectibles behind a wall, and that subconsciously makes the player want to go get it. So they're probably gonna play the game at least to the point of getting that collectible because they've been teased at getting it and they really want it, and they're wondering, how the heck am I gonna get over there to get that? I just mentioned it, but going above and beyond for collectibles is incredibly awesome. And that is especially true for what I'm calling the king collectible. The big one, the one that you're playing the entire game for. Think of the stars in Mario 64, the moons in Mario Odyssey, or the golden bananas in Donkey Kong Bonanza. These are the big boys that you're going for, and in this game I have these different letters that I call keys, and you need 3 of them in order to complete the game. And I have the sparkle particles on them, very, very similar to the candy box that you can see behind them. And these are really special, so I wanted to highlight that by making them come with their own special piece of artwork. There's an animation, and there's a special sound effect that goes with it. So when I walk into it, it shows a little interaction between the character and this other character over here on the left. And I get a pop-up that says, "You got the pinball tower key." And there was also a special sound effect that played as well. I think this is a really, really cool way of highlighting the importance of this collectible, and also using it as a vehicle to show an interaction between 2 characters that has motion when my game is very static with the animations otherwise. And those 3 collectibles are the main thing that you are getting in the game, but they don't actually do anything aside from story and progression. So I also wanted to reward the player with candy, which they're collecting a lot of, so I did also put a box of candy in there as well. A very loud box of candy. I know this can be information overload, and if you are a game developer or you are just interested in wanting to maybe make a game in the future, at this point you might be thinking, oh my god, I have to do so much stuff, I have to go so above and beyond to make good collectibles, and I don't want this video to seem daunting to people. I just want this to show you that you can go above and beyond if you really want to make an impact on your game. But don't think that all of the things that I'm saying are absolutely necessary. I am not an expert on any of this. I've just played a lot of video games, and I've made games for a couple of years now. So these are things that I've just noticed and things that I've found interesting based on what I've done and what I've experienced, but you don't need to do everything that I say. So don't try and let any of this intimidate you. I'm just showing what's interesting. These are not guidelines. I'm now in Mario Odyssey to show some good examples of some of the things that I was talking about. So we have the basic coins here, but we also have these gold rings, which are just more coins but packaged in a different way that feels really cool. And Mario games have always been really good at making the collectibles very, very interesting and making them things that you definitely want to get. Just the sound effects and all of the different visual effects for all of these things. Look at the shiny goldness on these rings. When you collect them, the coins fly up and have particles, and it all just looks and feels really, really great. And even though these rings are just basically more of the same of what I've already been collecting, because they're in a different format, they just feel so good. This game has really amazing collectibles in each of the kingdoms in the game. There are these secondary, different colored collectibles that you can use to get different outfits, and they are often in the more hidden areas, which just feels so cool to collect. And the moons are the whole reason that I wanted to talk about this game and show it off, because these are one of my favorite collectibles in a game of all time. And when I was talking about what I like to call the king collectibles, this is a good example of that. Look at the different effects that are coming off of it, the particles, there's a sound, it's spinning, and it looks so cool. And since this is the main collectible in the game, of course, when you collect it, you're going to get a fancy animation, sound effects, and all sorts of things. So cool. I genuinely think the moons are the, best collectible in a game. There's just something so good and satisfying for getting all of them. And I talked about it earlier, but a lot of people think there are too many moons in this game, and they are not as important whenever you collect them because they're just kind of everywhere. But personally, to me, hearing the sound effects, getting the animations every single time, it is so amazing. I love it so much. But now that we've talked about some really good stuff with collectibles, let's move on to some of the dark sides of collectibles in modern gaming. I'm now in a mobile slop game for some reason, and that reason is because I want to show you that the modernization of collectibles has reached a very good but bad place. So I wouldn't exactly call this a good game. You pretty much walk around, plant your crops, continue to plant them until your field is fully grown, and then you water them, which makes them grow. After they're grown, then you use your scythe to cut them down, and you see I'm collecting a lot of corn, and I also just got this golden horseshoe that's worth 340. So you collect all of that corn, and then you go over to this person, you sell that, and then that converts it into a different currency. On the right, you can see that I have eggs. I can also get some apples if I shake this tree, which is another currency. And there are also these blocks, which I have 18 out of 61. And there's also this stuff that costs money, so I put money into that. There's blocks, there's gems, there's corn, there's tomatoes, there's eggs. There's 1,000 different things, and this is what collectibles has really turned into for a lot of games nowadays. It's basically just a ton of collectibles, and you want to collect all of the things to see all of the different numbers go up, and then you get a rare watering can that makes you strong for 5 minutes. Okay, and your guy does that for whatever reason. But I'm talking about this as if it's bad. But is this game actually bad? Don't think so. Whoa, what are you? Okay, and then the unicorn gives you 5 of those. The collectibles are actually pretty good. And what makes this game actually kind of good and fun to play is because they've done a lot of work for making the things you collect very satisfying. So you can see the corns popping on the ground and flying over to the screen. And the more you get of an item, the more excited you are to go back to the shop and convert that into your other currency. And there's all these little teases on the side, like, oh, this costs $3.58. Let me do this and see what I get. Oh, it's another tomato field. And everything that you do leads to more collectibles, which makes you more excited to keep playing the game. A lot of people hate that this is what gaming has become, these sort of slop games, but I honestly kind of like some of them. They're a pretty okay way to just unwind and play a game that doesn't really have much of a meaning. You just kind of do the thing and then you're done with it. But this kind of stuff where there's 1,000 currencies and then one currency leads to another currency is a thing that's happening in the world of video games. And there's stuff known as gacha games, which are basically games that are completely pay to win, and they just want you to dump tons of money to get the different currencies that'll give you different characters, and this, that, and the other. I really think that that stuff is very, very lame, and it ties into that collectible part of our brain as humans that just want to collect all the things. Look at all the pop-ups on my screen right now. I can do this one. I can do that one. Oh my gosh. And I can do this one. It's really just tying into how attention spans are really, really trashy nowadays. And I don't like that this is where collectibles have gone. I love collectibles so much, and it's weird that this is the reality of where collectibles are right now. But whether it's actually good or bad, I can't really be the judge because I'm the type of person that, yeah, I kind of like these games. They fit a particular mood. Here is an example of currencies in a gacha game. So you have warp items, which can convert to passes, whether normal or special. And then you have these rare currencies that convert to this. Then the common currency can convert to that. And then these can turn into that. And it just becomes a lot of this goes to a little bit of that, and the thing that you get the little amount of is the thing that actually gets you the coolest stuff. And it really just boils down to just give us $10 and then you can buy the thing. And there's a ton of reasons why this is bad, but I think the number one reason for me why it's bad is because this preys on people who have addiction and gambling problems without saying that their game is just pure gambling. So in this game, you probably use a lot of these currencies to summon more characters, and the higher the power of the character, the stronger they are and the better you are at the game. And the best way to get those characters is to spend money and then do random draws at basically a slot machine. So when a person with an addictive personality starts to play this game and they put a little bit of money into it, they feel like they're getting a lot of reward out of it, because all of these collectibles that they have in this game feel really good. They have a lot of cool animations and special effects and sound effects, and that's just taking what makes collectibles cool and using them against us in a very, very terrible way that I am absolutely against. So I don't like that gacha games are a thing and that this is happening. I wish it would stop, but I can also see why people are really into it because, yeah, I love collectibles too, but I don't have the type of personality that is willing to shill out a bunch of money just to get the cool animation on my screen. So the world of making collectibles is very tricky. You can have too much, too little, you can be overbearing or underwhelming, but it's still one of my favorite parts of video games, even if sometimes they aren't the most perfect iteration of what is good. It's still really cool to just have them in games, and I've always been fascinated by them, and I wonder if you're fascinated by them too. I hope this video was able to actually touch on some subjects that people were interested about, or actually give you some information on things that you didn't know. But ultimately, I just hope that the video was entertaining and you enjoyed this format. This is a new thing for me, so let me know if you actually liked this type of video or not. The task of making a video game can be very daunting, but I just want to put this in a more informational and interesting light, So I don't want to make a video that's just like a tutorial on what to do and what not to do. I'd rather just talk about it and show examples of what I'm actually thinking. But my main sentiment is I just want people to get out there and make games and get out there and get interested in the design of games. So hopefully this will be a nice tool for people to actually get into that or to continue doing that. But yes, the world of collectibles can be very tricky, but if you just put some extra time and effort and care and love into it, you can get some really, really fun and memorable ones. And that's all that matters, really, right? Just having fun and making cool things. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.